Look what we have here, the first H&K on the channel, the P30 SK with the LEM trigger. More on that coming up next on GBGuns. So this is my first exposure with an HK pistol. The hard case is nice and seems quite pry resistant. We've got lock holes there on each side, and the pistol serial number, etc., is laser engraved on the case, which is rather nice. Maybe a bit excessive, but nice. P30 series. Here's the manual. We've got black and white. Looks like renderings. Sometimes that helps make things a little more clear than a photo. Interesting, got a record book in the back here, and all the part list. Of course, the obligatory lock, this one HK branded, rather nice. And here's the gun. We get the gun, we get a flush fit mag, a pinky rest mag, speed loader, tool, two other back straps. This one's marked small, and this one medium, which means obviously the large must be on the gun already. And then we have our interchangeable side plates. If you're not familiar with this design on H&K, you can change the side plates and the back strap to customize. This is large, and these ones small. We'll take a look at those more in detail later to see what kind of difference they make. So I'm going to pull those out ahead of time. I'll get the case out of the way, and let's take a look at the gun. So before we go any further, and I forget to mention it, I learned that this tool here is actually a key. Inside the mag well there, if I can get the light to hit it right, there's a little hole for a lockout device to disable the firearm. Interesting. I did not know those were on these guns. So get the mag back in there. We of course show clear. Now, I recently had an argument with someone about this who was saying that you have to remove the source of ammunition first, otherwise it's not totally clear. But if you pull the slide back and you look in there, you can see there's no round in the chamber, no round in the magazine. That's clear. All right, now that that's over with. So the SK is the subcompact of the P30 series. It's a hammer-fired gun and has a lighter double action, but it's a double action, single action, if you will. We'll start off by taking a look around the gun as always. We've got a squared off front with a little bit of side-to-side movement, not much vertical movement. We do have a little bit of beveling here on the front of the slide to make reinsertion a little bit easier. Coming underneath, there's our serial plate for the frame and some rail space. There is some texturing on the front of the trigger guard here for those who like to have the grip out there. Trigger guard swings low and then has a little bit of relief here. And you see, might have noticed earlier, the magazine release on H&Ks is the German style paddle, which I like. Reason being is I can just bump it with my middle finger like that instead of having to reach with my thumb. So for quick reloads, right, on a push button, sometimes you have to shift your grip to push it. With the paddle, you'll see my hand stays exactly where it was on the gun, and I'm able to drop the magazine. The texturing here is nice. We do have finger grooves that fit my large fingers fairly well. Not quite entirely. And of course, pinky dangling with this magazine. This is a 10 round magazine. I do understand that they have 13 and 15s out there now. Try that pinky rest magazine. This is the same capacity of 10 rounds. Just gives you that full grip. And now that is a comfortable grip. I can get my whole hand on there without adding much off of the end. Usually this area here is the part that prints when you're concealing. So having this angle here means that putting this magazine in probably isn't going to be any harder to conceal. Back onto the gun, we see that we do get magazine ejection, not release. I'm a fan of that in case there's any grit or dirt that's on the magazine or in the gun. Helps give you a little bit of extra kick out. But if that were to fail, you can see that there's some cutouts here to give you room to pinch and be able to grab and rip that magazine out if need be. Coming around to our back strap, we can see that large heel. This must be the large one. It puts my finger right at a nice memory point on the right side of the frame. For a two-handed grip, I could ride with my left thumb right here for another memory point. And my length of pull is acceptable. It's easy for me to get the middle of my pad on there. Keep in mind I have large hands, so for those with smaller hands might want to try the other back straps. This looks like it's about perfect for me. To see how that trigger works, pull back. Not much of a wall there, it just kind of pulls right into it. Just rolls through it. Very smooth for a double action. It's sort of a pre-cock double action, if you will. Now that I've fired that second strike capability, in case you had a hard primer or a failure of some sort of the ammunition, you can pull again, and you see the hammer come back and release. That is a heavier pull for sure. I can tell the difference there. It's a tough one. It's not going to happen accidentally for sure. Let's check our reset distance. It's a moderate amount. It's not all the way out. Then from the reset, we still have that take up bit while the hammer does its final movement, but it lets you stage at a wall and break. So it's applicable for a precise shot. Of course, this being a subcompact gun, not meant for target shooting. We'll see how it does in either role. My hand fits nicely on this. Looking at rear slide to frame, very tight. And we see we have the somewhat luminescent sights, 3-dot sight system. They really grab your eyes. Nice and square. We've got a little bit of room on the sides of the front sight post there. That's great for being able to still see your target in the periphery or see any movement of the target. I prefer that to when the target's completely blocked off. Just a personal preference. Hammer's bobbed so it stays out of the way. You cannot cock it. I mean, you can pull part way, then bring it back and let go, but it's not something, the hammer's not going to stay back. It stays out of the way, nice and slim. Now, a point on this, with a hammer like this, or an advantage of hammer fired versus striker, because I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, well, why not just go with a striker fired gun? Well, for those of you who carry in dangerous places like the appendix position, this lets you put your thumb on the back of it while pushing it into the holster, and with your thumb there, you're not going to be able to pull the trigger. So it's an extra bit of safety there to be able to put your thumb on while holstering, and the gun's not going to go off without giving you lots of warning of that hammer fighting you. Coming around to the right side of the gun, we can see we've got our slide lock or release on both sides of the gun, as well as the magazine release in a very slim manner. Them being nice and long like that gives you plenty of leverage to snap it freely. And a little bit of red there, it's going to pop when there's a round in the chamber to function as a loaded chamber indicator. Very nicely built. From the outside, let's take a look inside the gun. So I'm sure some of you are wondering, where's the takedown lever? It's actually this axle here that runs across between the slide stop and release. Just had a thought. Let's see if that still works from this side. It does work as a release on both sides. So to take it down, we're going to lock the slide back, and you can see there's a notch here on the slide. We need that notch to be right over the cutout there in the frame, and then you're going to push on the other side of that axle. Pops loose a little bit, pull out, and it stops. You can see that red there. Now the slide comes right off, no need to pull the trigger, which is nice. And no extra part flopping around. So that's a nice sort of in-between of the takedown lever and the older style pin that you physically pull out. Looking inside, you can see build quality. Everything very cleanly done. There is a steel insert in this rear rails. And of course the steel up front is very obvious. Give you a good look inside there. Our recoil spring, slightly different than you might be used to, has this hook, and it is a captured dual spring system. I love these dual spring systems because they tend to progressively absorb the energy and make for a smoother shooter, which on a short barreled gun like this with a smaller grip is going to be a welcome adaptation. Take a look inside of our slide. We can see that any unnecessary metal has been removed to help cut weight down. There's our drop safety. Some factory grease in there. Very cleanly machined though. Everything looks precise, as one would expect from HK. Here's our rather short barrel. We can see the feed ramp has polish, nice wide to narrow guidance, and there's actually a bit of depth there on that ramp. Try to get some light on there to show you. Let's check for chamber support, which as always is done with our Nosler match ammunition. This is the same stuff we'll use for my 5 shots at 7 yards test. We drop the round in there, and we see there's a little bit of casing still exposed on the backside. So I wouldn't quite call this fully supported, but pretty close. If you're wondering what that means you might want to stay away from reloads and just shoot factory new, which is what I advise anyways for safety's sake, because you never know how worn out that old brass was. So get this back together. You can expect when, and once it's back together, I'll of course drive this out and show you the different fits of the different back straps. We're just going to reverse what we did to take it apart. Pull back to about there, push that through, and it's back together. And now we can function check. Everything's good. Gonna need a punch to drive out that pin. So while I drive this pin out, tell you that we'll be taking this out to the range for the What's for Dinner test, which of course is running a variety of loads. Steel cased, aluminum cased, lightweight, heavyweight loads, all those to see what the gun will function with and what it won't. So this doesn't have any, oh it does have the L there, so that's certainly the large. Let's see how the medium looks. So my finger rests just forward of that point, which allows me to get too much finger in here. If you have too much finger in, it's easy to cause the gun to shoot a little bit right. So if you have a problem with your gun shooting left to right, watch your finger placement. That's a simple trick. Too much finger and it pulls the gun to the right, too little finger and you end up pushing to the left. It's not the only cause of left to right error, but it is a major cause. We'll put the small on here. You can see that's noticeably different. And now my finger reaches well past that point. So the large is definitely the one for me. For reference, large back on there. And now I'm just reaching that end. And my finger is easy to place flatly on this nice broad trigger. Try filling out this panel. Right medium. As a right-handed shooter, really only the right side of the gun is of concern for fit to me. So here's the large right side. And you can see it definitely fills out there. See that step? Whereas the medium kind of fit flush. Now let's get our large backstrap back on there. See, it fills the gap on the back of the palm. that feels good to me. There's no real need for anything on this side. As a right-handed shooter, that's just being filled with my hand. So I like that little bump there. That feels good. I think I'm going to keep this setup with a medium, a large, and a large, and drive a pin back in there. This is my first experience with H&K. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm curious to hear from those of you that have used them in the past. I know when the VP9 came out, it was very popular. And then I haven't heard a whole lot since. I like the idea of the hammer fired, just as extra safety when reholstering, to put that thumb on the back there and prevent it from going off on the way in. Just as a simple protect yourself from error. I wonder if my thumb would... But curious to see this short of a barrel and how this recoil system is going to work with all those different loads. Also, I'm curious, I was inspired by another YouTube channel that I saw that was talking about recoil management with and without the pinky rest. I shoot a little bit differently than, I don't do the isosceles thing. I do a modified weaver, so I don't think it's going to make as big of an impact, but we'll take a look at shooting with the rest versus without, and I might even try shooting isosceles for y'all who shoot that way and want to see how it comes out. So that's the P30 SK from H&K. Looking forward to getting this thing to the range. Thanks for watching.